Hi, this is Zak Mir with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zak's Traders Cafe for Tuesday, October the 7th. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is heading slowly towards the pointed target at the top of that rising trend channel from back in June. That's currently pointing at a target up to 95.70, and we're looking at that obviously in coming days. We're looking at that actually by the end of the month, but it looks as though we might get there earlier, while we're above recent support around 94.20. In terms of potential upside after that, if we can get through 95.70 quickly, i.e. in the next week or so, then the next level up by the end of next month could be up to 97.70, which is a May resistance line projection. If there is a rug pull below 94.20, though, the target expected there on the downside would be 93.50, which was the old August-September resistance area. Moving on to the DAX, and here we are still feeding the benefits of the gap to the upside we had last week. Unfilled gap to the upside, top of the gap there, 24,200 above that. We're looking for the top of the rising trend channel from back in April, as high as 25,600. Probably looking for that by the end of next month now, given that the price action remains rather dull here. It has been dull for most of the last 5-6 weeks, but at least we're on the right side of that 50-day moving average, which is rising just below 24,000 and above that. Still expecting decent upside. The Dow is next, and here the shutdown fears seem to have been slightly, largely ignored, but not yesterday. Here you can see that we're still on the right side of 46,000 there and above that. Looking for the top of the channel there from May last year, 47,800, and looking for that by the end of this month. There is a rug pull, which I suppose we're rather overdue on now. We haven't really had one since the beginning of August. Then it would be the 50-day moving average there, 45,300, if only on an intraday basis. Cryptos are next, and here we had the excitement over the weekend of a push to 125,500. Still just below that at the moment, but looking for the top of that rising trend channel from February, as high as 133,000 by the end of this month. Best case by the end of the year, I suppose, now would be up to 153, which is the upper parallel of that rising trend channel from back in February. On the downside, 118 hopefully will limit any losses, given that that was the old August-September resistance for this market. Disappointment in the recent past has been Ethereum, in the sense that one would expect that to have gone to new highs, but so far still shy of the best levels towards 5,000. We're in a rising trend channel from July, heading for 5,400 now, which we're hoping for by the end of this month as a best case scenario target, while we remain above the now rising 50-day moving average, 4,400. There is a rug pull. It would be to the floor of the channel towards the 4,000 area, but ideally now there has been enough testing for support so that we stay above the 50-day line. Gold is next, and people can still read and tell you that it's hitting record highs. We have already adjusted our upside target, which is actually more important than just reading what's on the screen. Previous target was 38.60. Above that, we are looking for 41.60, perhaps as soon as the end of this month, which is an October resistance line projection from this time last year. On the downside, hoping that we'll now have no sustained price action back below 3,800, which was mid-September resistance and has been the initial October support zone. Moving on to the stocks, and starting off with Coinsilium, which seems to be enjoying the latest recovery in Bitcoin. Here you can see that the shares have actually had decent candles in the last few days. In fact, really since the lows there towards the 3 pence area, but at least in the last 4 sessions, generally opening at the low, closing at or near the high, and that kind of pattern is normally a sign that we're in a turnaround mode. All that's missing now is for the 50-day line there at 4.8 pence to start flipping up, and then we could be heading off not only to the initial target here, which suggested around 6.4 pence, but up to 10 pence by the end of this month, which is the top of that broadening triangle there from the end of July. Ideally, whatever happens, we stay above the 50-day moving average at 4.8 pence. And also, it would be nice to stay above the 6 pence zone, as that was support on the way down. capAI is next, and here you can see there's a decent crawl above, at and above the 200-day moving average. That's currently around 0.3 pence, and it's encouraging that we've had support coming in intraday above that 200-day line. That suggests that we are ready to flip higher, perhaps up to the top of the recent range, 0.6 pence, maybe by the end of next month. If you're cautious, which you probably would be now, as we've had a few false attempts to retest the highs of the May period, you wait for a proper end of day close above the 50-day line, currently at 0.37 pence. Next up is a stock which I don't really look at very much, but couldn't resist it today. Galantas Gold, very liquid, but enough action here above the rising 50 and 200-day lines, and a double RSI 50 rebound after an extended RSI 50 rebound in August. So hopefully with the gold price, etc., we should get up to as high as 9 pence by the end of next month, while we're above the 50-day line at 4.15 pence. Moving on to a rather larger stock in the form of Greatland Gold. And here you can see what Greatland Resources, it's changed its name. Here you can see with a rising trend channel, top of the channel there, heading for up to 436 pence. Looking for that by the end of this month. And if you are a fan of the shares and looking for greater glory, then the upper parallel of that rising trend channel from November last year, heading for £6. And I suppose that would be an end of year target now for the shares, while we're above the old resistance around the 360, 370 level. I suppose the upper parallel of that rising trend channel also coincides with the line I'm drawing at the moment, which is a resistance line projection there from back in November last year. So all roads currently pointing to 6 months. And the other point to note is that we've had multiple RSI 50 plus rebounds since the beginning of last month, 3 last month, and then 4 last month, and then a couple so far this month. So very strong price action indeed. Moving along to a stock which is not quite in the same league as Gunsynd, but who knows, as Greatland, but who knows, might be. Nice build that we've had in the recent past, obviously quite tentative, but we've had our golden cross to start the week between the 50 and 200-day lines. Also, we've had multiple RSI 50 plus rebounds, a bit like Greatland Gold there, so looking for 0.21, 0.22 by the end of this month as a minimum. And obviously, we can look back and see that above the 0.2 pence area, the next level up towards 0.25, which would be probably our target for the end of November. Moving on to a stock which has had a real sort of rocky ride in the recent past, Hemogenyx, obviously rather upset the shorters, given the way that the shares rose vertically from the end of August. Current situation is we're in a rising trend channel, plenty of resistance towards £13, but above that, hopefully we could get a retest of the best levels of the year so far towards £17.90. And we'll be looking at that for that by the end of next month or even sooner. In terms of the best case scenario target up to nearly £23, which is the top of that channel, maybe that's a best case scenario end of year, end of 2025 target. The other point to note is that we haven't had the RSI below neutral 50 since the middle of August. We've had a couple of dips towards the RSI 50 area and then rebounded. So that is encouraging in terms of telling us that this is a stock in a strong bull run. Moving on to Insig AI, the fundraise at the 30 pence level, a slight discount to the prevailing price, in fact. And here you can see that shares pushing through both of those levels. We were already looking for 45 pence by the end of next month. It looks as though the shares might actually get there by the end of this month. 50 and 200-day lines both rising, and we also had an RSI 50 rebound before the latest rally, which was obviously started by an unfilled gap to the upside. In fact, 2 gaps in play in the recent past. So looking very strong indeed. 45 pence looks pretty well nailed on while we're above the 30 pence area. Great deal for Ironveld announced today, and here you can see that we've hit all our targets. We had a previous target there at 007, and even though we pulled back since then, Both targets, though, the 065 and the 007, both hit there, so it's just a matter of consolidating and hopefully then heading higher one more time. The 0.075 target, the old resistance from back in the spring of 2024. Finishing off with Reabold, which has also come up with a cracking deal, probably for itself rather than anybody else. But here you can see that we had a spike towards our pre-existing target there at 0.09. Ideally, we stay on the right side of 0.06 and then progress back up to 0.09. But what's interesting here is you would have thought after such a great announcement, the shares would be up rather more than just 22%. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.